Well, hello there. I'm going to show you how to make my fun weekend hat, or my weekend fun hat. That's what I'll name it, my weekend fun hat. And this is it. Super easy to do, really. Good for beginners. So what I did, and you don't have to do this. You can just use any yarn. But what I did is I put together, I had this Bergeret de France bulky yarn. And then it wasn't very thick for a bulky. And then I had this one, which is Barocco Pirouette, and it's pretty thin. So when I put them together, the La Bergeret here, which is that thick, with a little bit thinner, because two of the La Bergeret was too thick, but this with this thin one made my perfect yarn size that I wanted. So I put them together and they were the same color pretty much. So that's the one color I'm using in here. Okay, and then the other color, so what I did is I just rolled them together. I don't like doing them if they're not together, because if they're not together, they tangle and everything. So this is my yarn that I'm using with the two mixed in. Okay, and then the other yarn that I'm using in here, and you can use any yarn, any kind of a fancy yarn or anything in here, or if you don't want a fancy yarn, it's a different stitch. You can use the same yarn and that stitch will still stick out in a pattern and look nice. But this is the yarn I'm using, and I spun this yarn. And how I got this yarn is I had lots of leftover yarn. So I took the leftover yarn and I carded it up, and I put in a little white that I had more of, and a little blue I had more of, and I carded it up, all the colors up together, and then I spun them together to get this. And I only had so much. I was going to make another project, but I didn't have enough yarn for it, and because it's my leftovers, I can't make it exactly the same again. So I decided this is what I'll do with it. I'll use it to embellish, and I'm really liking how it looks. So I'm going to show you how to make that. Now the loom hook I'm using, I got from Steve Axelrod. And if you really like these kind of loom hooks, I have a link to my Facebook group. He's in there, and you can also find him on Etsy, but he's in the group, and he often puts brand new styles and colors on my Facebook group, and sometimes offers deals. So you might want to join my group to see these loom hooks if you want, or you can just go to Etsy and get them. His Etsy is Artisanal Turnings. Okay. So this is the loom hook I'm using, and the loom is a orange loom. It's from the Derice set, and it's the second one down. And the Derice set is like a Nifty Knitter or any of the circle sets you'd get at Michael's or Joann's or Hobby Lobby that are 3/4 inch for the largest one. And this is the second one down, and it has 36 pegs. Okay, so that's what I'm making the hat out of. So the first thing I'm going to do is take you to the video for the cast on, and you're going to do the cast on, and then we'll come back and I will show you the pattern. So I will see you in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I cast on and do my first couple rows to get that effect at the front of the brim. Okay. So you can use any yarn and loom. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure that they match for how tight or how loose you want the stitch. So the first thing I do is I'm just going to make a slip knot and put it on the first peg. The yarn I'm using is a bulky yarn, and I'm on a 5/8 inch loom. It has 44 pegs, which is small. It's a youth size or a very small woman's head. Anyway, so I do the slip knot. Then I'm going to take the loom hook, okay, and put it in the top of it. I'm going to pull up the working yarn. So this is just the crochet chain stitch without a loom hook. Okay. Oh, and Yeah, this yarn that I spun, it's 100% merino wool, just in case you were wondering. Okay, and then I tighten it and I put the loop behind and I tighten it. And I put the loop behind and I tighten it. Loop behind and I tighten it. Loop behind and I tighten it. And you're just going to do that all the way around the loom. Okay, just like this, all the way around. I have a stitch marker here, but it doesn't matter. Maybe I'll just take it off. It's for something else that I did. Okay. And we just keep going around. So I'm just going to put you on pause while I go most of the other way around, and we'll meet you up in a bit. Okay, I'm getting close to the end of the row now. And I'm just going to pop this peg on here, or this yarn on here, and knit it over. And we are cast on, and we've already done the first stitch there, so I'm not going to do any more because it's going to be heavy enough. Okay, so to get started, we do a row of owl eye. So to do owl eye, we go over the first peg, knit it off, come over peg 1 and 2, knit them off. Whatever peg you're on is peg 1, go over 1 and 2 nice and loose and just knit it off. Go over 1 and 2, knit it off. Always on the first peg that you start on, it's always peg 1, go over 1 and 2 nice and loose and knit them off. That's all there is to it. And we're just going to go all the way around the loom. Okay, so we will just catch up when we're close to the end of the row. Okay, so I'm getting close to the end of the row here. And then I'm just going to come over here like this and end my row right there. I'll do one more stitch over. And the reason I did that is because this had less stitches on it. Then we're going to do a row of purl. Okay, so you put the loom hook in here, pull up the working yarn and just slip it over the top. Put the loom hook here, scoop up the yarn and just flip it over the top like that. Okay, pull it up and forward, over, and just tighten slightly. And we're just going to go all the way around the loom doing the purl stitch. And then the cast on will be complete and you will have that look on the front. Okay, so I will meet you up when we get close to the end of the row. Okay, so I finished the row of purl. Now we do one more row of owl eye. And so again, this is how I do it. And then I'll just meet you up at the end and we will have we'll have the look. Okay, so I will see you when we get back around. Okay, so I'm done that, and it's hard to see, but this is the look that you're going to have on your brim. This beautiful chain look. So at this point, if you're doing brimless, you just go right into the stitch you're using, Or if you want to have an owl eye brim, you just start doing some rows of owl eye. Okay, so I showed you this part here, and then we'll go on and do the project. Okay, so now we're ready to start for me showing you the pattern. So you've cast it on, and then you're going to do 5 or 6 rows of owl eye, whatever you like for your brim, or you can do a little more if you want a bigger brim. It won't really matter. This is the size I did my brim. And owl eye is the other stitch in this pattern. And the pattern is 6 stitches to 3 of my colored ones. So 6, 3, and then this can be however wide you want it on the brim. So the stitch is owl eye, and you already know how to do that. And because I'm on the burgundy color, I am doing owl eye stitch. So I'm just going to continue doing owl eye until I have my 6 rows in. And then I'm going to join my other yarn, and I'm going to do my 3 rows of that. But I'm getting close to where I'm getting close to the brim, so I may only do 5 rows this last one. And you can do that as you get close to the end. You can decide if you need to do something so that they come out just the way you want. The length comes out just the way that you want it to, okay? So I'm just going to keep doing owl eye until I have enough rows, and I'm going to add the other one in. So I'm going to put you on pause, and we will catch up when we're ready to do the other one. Okay, so I'm just nearing the end of the row. Now I'm going to add in the yarn. Now I just felted my yarns together. Okay, this yarn's a little thicker that I use for the other stitch than this one, but they are felted together so that they're just one yarn. You can just attach your new yarn right on the first peg and keep on going. But I just felted it in because I have natural fibers. The La Bergeret is 50-50, 50 wool, 50 acrylic. But the Pirouette is mohair and wool and Angora, I think. And then my yarn is all a mixture of different wools with a little silk in it. So I'm mostly natural, so I knew they would felt really strongly. So I felted it just to make not having to have any kind of a knot or anything. So anyway you want to attach, and I do have video on attaching yarn. Okay, so I'm just going to finish the owl eye row. Okay, and so my second stitch on owl eye. But what I'm going to do here is put a second stitch on the first peg. I'm going to put 1 stitch there. So when I start the E-wrap, it's not going to make a jog. And if you look down here, here's where my stitch looks. But if you look here, you don't see a hole or a jog, which will happen when you're adding E-wrap in with another stitch often. So what I've done is I did this so it would be nice and smooth here. Okay, so I just put 1 stitch there, and you're E-wrapping this way, so I'm going to go around this way. And I usually do E-wrap 3 at a time. So you're just going to be E-wrapping for 3 rows, and so you just keep going, and I will meet you up at the end of your 3rd row to show you how to go back into the owl eye stitch after doing the E-wrap stitch. So I will see you there. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, so I was getting pretty long, so I only did 2 rows way up here when I'm doing the E-wrap rows. So as you can see here, I just did 5 rows here because I didn't want too long a brim. Then I did 3 rows, 6, 3, 6. And now I'm just up. I'm just going to do 2 here because I'm just going to do a few rows and finish it. It's getting awfully long, so for me, so I'm going to have to do something. So I've already felted on my other color. So I'm just going to finish the E-wrap. So I'm going to come here and do an E-wrap. I'm going to come here and do an E-wrap. And then on this peg that has the E-wrap, I'm going to come over in a U-wrap. It's going to be a really thick one here. Get it over. There we go, because it's still wet from me felting. I didn't wait for it to dry. Okay, and now I'm ready to go into the owl eye again. So over the owl eye. And so you're just going to do your, so that's how, I wanted to show you how you switch from the E-wrap to the owl eye and the owl eye to the E-wrap, and just show you that it makes a nice smooth thing that you can't tell is felted. And that's just the end of a yarn there. Okay, that I wanted to weave in. That's where I added some of this yarn to this yarn, and I guess it's showing through. I'll just put it back there. Okay, there we go. And anyway, it just so you don't have a jog there. So now all you're going to do is go as long as you need to go. You want to end on your main color with the owl eye, and as you get close to where you're going to do the brim, just before, you're going to do a couple rows of E-wrap, just so that when you take it off and you cast off the crown, you're going to have a nice flat one that isn't too bulky. Okay, so just do your E-wrap, or just do your owl eye until you're just about done, and then do a couple rows of E-wrap, and I'm going to take you over to how to bind off, and we will catch up and look at the finished project. So we will see you in a bit. And now we can go ahead and bind it off, and I'm just going to do a slightly decreased bind off so I don't get a lot of bulk, and it's pretty easy to do. So all we're going to do first is do a row of E-wrap, and it doesn't matter which stitch you ended with, whether you ended with the Jupiter stitch or the U-wrap, it'll work fine either way. So we're just going to E-wrap nice and loose all the way around the loom. And the reason you want to keep it loose is you're going to have to move some stitches, and you want to them to be fairly loose to move. I just kind of gently push it to make sure I'm keeping it nice and loose. Okay, and then you're just going to knit the last one to secure it. Knit it over, and then you're just going to go around the loom and knit off the E-wrap. Okay, so I'll just put you on pause and we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that that's done, what you're going to do is you're going to go by twos all the way around the loom, and every second peg is going to go on the first peg, the yarn. So you're going to take it off and you're just going to move it over to the peg before it. So just taking it off and moving it to the peg before it. And you're just going to go all the way around the loom. So you'll have 2 loops on peg 1, nothing, 2 loops on peg 2, nothing, or two loops over here. And you're just going to keep doing that so that every second peg will be blank, and every second peg will have the 2 loops on it. Okay? So if you are on a uneven loom, you won't have an even amount of pegs, so you just don't bother doing the last one. Doesn't really matter. And because I kept this nice and loose, it's quite easy for me to move these over. Just awkward because the angle I have it, but Okay, so I'm going to put you on pause, and as you see how this is looking, and we're just going to meet up when we have that done. Okay, now that you have that all done, all you're going to do is go around the loom and knit the bottom one over the top, like that. And that reduces the bulk so that your cast off and the back of your hat will lay a lot flatter. And more, and then the one more, and there we are, and there's the working yarn coming out of this one. And then all we're going to do is, with the working yarn, go around the loom 1.5 times and just cut your yarn. Now you can either use your loom hook or a needle, and we're just going to go up and scoop up the loops so we can do a drawstring bind off. And I usually use a needle, but if you were going to use your loom hook, which is easy to do with this method, you just take the yarn and pull it through like that. And if you have a needle, you just put the needle on and you're going to pick it up the same way. I usually use a needle. This is so much easier though when you're doing it sometimes. On a bigger loom, I'd for sure want a needle. Okay, so I'm just going to put you on pause and we'll pick it all up, and I'll see you at the beginning. Okay, now when we get all the way around, we make sure we pick up the very first stitch that we had already picked up. You want to make sure that every peg is on here. Now all you have to do is take all the pegs off the loom. You just go around and you just flip them off. I'm just holding on to the drawstring here because I want to make sure that it doesn't come off. And we just take them all off. And you can even do it with your fingers. And there we go. All off the loom. We can just put the loom to the side. We don't need it anymore. And then you're going to take the working yarn and you're just going to drawstring the brim closed. Okay, you're just going to make sure that it's all like that. And then when you get it about halfway, you're just going to take the working yarn and put it through the hat and flip it this way because we're going to finish it on the wrong side. And we just bind it up, and as you see here, it's going to be not as bulky as it would have been. We've thinned that out. Okay, and now this is when we do need a needle. So I'm just going to get a needle. I have a needle in this handy dandy little thing. And also you can cut the working yarn a lot shorter. You just need to sew that close. So I'm going to cut it to about there. and put the needle through the yarn, or the yarn through the needle. Okay, there we go. So that's threaded, and we're just going to sew this closed. So what I do is, now that I've bound it up, is I kind of pinch it so I can see where that edge was, and then I make sure it's pulled nice and tight. There's the hole in the middle, so I just want to pinch it so I'm at that hole in the middle. And then I just take the needle and I just sort of sew around in a circle around that hole, just picking up some loops. Okay, and then I'm going to actually do a knot. My loom wants, or my yarn wants to be all weird. Go, and I'm going to do another knot. Just want to make sure that this doesn't come apart. I'm just going to go to the other side. And make another knot. And then you can sew the working yarn in if you'd like. I just actually, because it's not going to be reversible, I just cut it and leave it. It's not going to hurt anything. Doesn't bother me. And the other side of your hat looks like this. It's a lot thinner, but we'll take it. And we'll stretch our stitches, because that's what you always do when you make a hat, is you stretch your stitches. You pull it every way and make sure it's all stretched out. And then there's your hat. It's looking really nice. The top is flattened a lot better, your beanie hat, than it would have been. And there you go. You have a beautiful beanie hat. Okay, so here we are with the finished hat. I really love the way it turned out. Got the nice flat brim here. Nice and flat, and I really like the way it looks. Of course, I stretched out the stitches, and there it is. Real nice way for me to have used up my leftover yarn, but yeah, this will look really nice with anything that you put in here. You could find any kind of a yarn, or put two strands together or something, different colors, anything. Or just use the same yarn, do the different stitch. But either way, I really love the way that this turned out. It's really pretty. Doing 2 rows here is no problem. When you're near the crown, it curls over and it makes it look a tiny bit longer. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed the video. And until next time, bye.